Welcome to our Wake Forest Center for Artificial Intelligence in Action seminar. And then we really want our presentations to be engaging and enlightening, but this time it's also entertaining. And then it rarely happens. And then, but it's going to be a talk at the cutting edge intersection of AI and healthcare. And we are honored to host Dr. Jonathan Chen. He's an MD, PhD, and then he's an assistant professor at Stanford University. We are very grateful to him. He kindly stopped on his way from HIMSS meeting in Florida to Stanford to spend some time with us today. And then he's a distinguished figure in clinical informatics. His work integrates human insights with artificial intelligence to enhance patient care. And then his presentation titled Artificial Intelligence in Medicine, Real Magic or Technological Illusions. And then you actually saw some of his illusions. And then he promised an insightful exploration into the evolving landscape of AI and healthcare and addressing its potential to revolutionize how medical knowledge and services are accessed and delivered. His work is cited many places, and one of them is the IBM, International Brotherhood of Magicians. So we really are very interested in hearing his talk. And in his talk, he will explain the opportunities and challenges of AI in clinical decision-making, chart summarization, and personalized care, highlighting the critical balance between innovation and human touch.
Very good.
Welcome.
And thank you for the invitation. So glad to see everybody here. We can start with something a little bit different. Arthur C. Clarke famously once said, "Any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic." Such as what I'm doing right now. This cannot actually be real. Do not attempt this at home, y'all. Because if this were actually real, what would happen if I were to pull down hard on these two ends of the rope? What would happen is something quite impossible if this were a completely normal, real piece of rope. And I claim to you that it is a complete ordinary piece of rope. Hi there, what was your name?
Jenny.
Jenny, so nice to see you. Jenny, can you thoroughly examine and confirm to everybody it's a complete normal piece of rope? Thank you so much. See, even Jenny confirmed it's a complete normal piece of rope. There's nothing strange about it. Jenny seems unsatisfied. Go ahead, take a look. Double check, no trapdoors, no hidden assistance, doesn't stretch, doesn't come apart. It's a piece of rope, normal piece of rope, just like you find in any bedroom. Yes, Jenny?
Sure.
Very good. This is important because I'm going to demonstrate a classic effect. A magician takes the rope and then cuts it in half and then magically restores it back together. Well, I'm a physician also, so I have to restore patients back to health all the time. But I'm also an educator, so I thought rather than trying to trick you today, it might be more interesting to show you step by step exactly how this illusion is created. Would y'all like to see this today?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know, you don't sound that enthusiastic. Would you all like to see this today?
Yeah.
Very good. Jenny, trauma shears from the hospital. I washed most of the blood off, it's okay.
Oh, good.
Heavy duty here.
How did you get that through TSA?
There you go. It's a 4-inch requirement. It works. Go ahead and give it a snip right through there. Beige parts of the rope, the flesh-colored parts of the performer here. Yeah, you got to kind of push the shears together. There you go. You're good. You're good. Fantastic. Did it look like you cut the rope?
Yep.
Did it feel like you cut the rope?
Yeah.
If you actually did cut this rope, what should I be holding right now?
2 separate ropes.
2 exactly equal pieces of rope. 2 approximately equal pieces of rope. What's your specialty? I don't suppose you're a surgeon, are you?
No.
Okay, just as well. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. I'll tell you what you do. If you get in this situation, just take your 2 ropes and you just twirl them together and then just unwind them until they end up about equal again. Right? Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of you don't look happy about it. Okay, we'll start over. I got a piece of rope. It's got 2 ends in the middle here. I'll do this a little bit more fairly. You got 2 ends of the rope. I'm going to put them away in my pocket. Look, I can't even touch them anymore. That's how fair it is. We just take a snap and the ends pop over to this side, which means the middle's in my pocket. If you want to examine this, you can look at anything you want, and still you will not see anything, because there's invisible forces at play. Static electricity binds the ends of the rope together. See, if I rub a little bit of static on this side, you rub a little static on this side, and the ends come together, and you have one continuous loop of rope. Right?
Wow.
Don't worry, I've got a spare set of ends with me. All right, there. There's fine spot with Luke, grab on the ends and pop them back on before anybody notices. Some of you are having fun. A lot of people here look very unhappy and frustrated. I'm trying to show you what's going on here. People are frustrated. There's something wrong with the ends of that rope. It's like, no, the ends are fine. It's actually the middle that pops off.
Something wrong with my eyes. I'm trying to see it.
Just make sure you reattach the middle piece back on before anybody notices. Right? Jenny, of course you realize by now the shears, that was just misdirection. You can actually just cut the rope anytime you want with by using your fingers. Right? And then to put the two pieces back, all I have to do is just tie them together with a knot. I was never that good at the one-handed knot in surgery rotation, so I had to learn the two-handed knot. I'm doing it slower this time so you can actually see me putting the knot together. Right? And then I want you guys to think about, in this day and age of generative AI system, is what you're seeing, is this real or is this not?
Oh!
There you go. All right, let me get these trauma shears here and let me see if I can really cut this thing up. This is not easy for me to do. I'm actually a medicine doctor. I don't deal with trauma shears very often. I don't suppose you guys know how to hide a $100 bill from a medicine doctor. You put it under a dressing or a bandage. We'll never look because it's You had to hide a $100 bill from a radiologist. You stick it to a patient's forehead. They'll never see it.
I never see it.
I had a $100 bill from a neurosurgeon. You stick it to their child's forehead and they'll never see it. Well, sorry, it's for real. Yes. Well, I don't know. See how this goes. How do you hide a $100 bill from a pediatrician? You don't have to bother. They wouldn't know what a $100 bill looks like. All right, by now I should have about 16 little pieces of rope here. Woo, 14 little pieces of rope. But if we twist these together, no, 13 little pieces of rope, we might just be able to just tie these all back together into one big piece of rope.
Whoa.
Not really, I mean, these knots come right off, and we are back to a complete piece of rope.
Wow.
There you go. Jenny, double check. All right, we're ready to ask. It's just the warm up so people can log in and get here.
I think Jenny is part of the...
Jenny coming in. You believe her? Does that look like a face you can trust?
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a discussion.
Checks in the mail. All right, here's the intro.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a discussion on the potential.
Oh, sorry. Let me just reset it.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a discussion on the potential of AI technologies for healthcare. Before we dive in, allow me to introduce myself, although that phrase may take on a surreal meaning today. I'm not the real speaker, nor did the real speaker write this introduction. The voice you're hearing, the image you're seeing on the screen, and even these introductory words were all generated by AI systems. We are actively amidst the arrival of a set of disruptive technologies that are changing the way all of us do our work and live our lives. These profound capabilities and potential applications could reshape healthcare, offering both new opportunities and ethical challenges. To make sure we're still anchored in reality, however, let's welcome the real-life version of our speaker. Take it away, Dr. Jonathan Chen, before they start thinking, I'm the one who went to medical school.
Well, that was weird. I don't know, Dr. I'm not sure. Do I actually have to be here? Because I'm pretty sure AI systems just like give my presentation for me at this point. I certainly hope and wish AI system will start automatically managing my overwhelming flood of emails and in-basket messages I'm flooded with every single day. And indeed, now we are right in the middle of probably a disruptive technology wave, right? All the big tech companies are in an arms race right now trying to get a hold of this, a feeding frenzy of investments into AI companies right now because everyone knows there's a huge change happening right now and they're all trying to get a piece of it. You know, for better or worse, good or bad, Pandora's box is already open. Even if you're not using these types of tools, all our students are using these tools right now. And we totally don't know how to cope with it because they're using it to do their homework, their take-home tests, including to submit chatbot-generated content without even attempting to edit it. Our whole design of education that depends on people reading things and writing text and us grading it, that whole nature of education has been flipped on its head overnight, and we really don't know how to cope with it. Let alone education in medical context, right? Despite a very thin wall of disclaimers saying you're not supposed to do it, you can't stop people. they're clearly using these systems for medical advice and counseling. If not to diagnose and treat themselves, and to diagnose and treat their dogs. I gave a version of this presentation to many medical house staff several months ago, and they stopped me in the middle. They said, wait a second, I don't understand. We are totally using ChatGPT in ICU rounds right now. Are you saying we should not be using this as a medical reference? I said, no, you should not use this as a medical reference. That doesn't mean you can't use it. You just need to understand what it is and what it is not. And a reference is not what it is. Many here will be familiar, but a very crude, oversimplified explanation. What are these things? Well, what is autocomplete? You search for something, and I search for coronary artery. And then what happens? Autocomplete comes up. Did you want coronary artery disease? Did you want coronary artery calcification? How does the computer do this? How does the computer know what you wanted to say before you even completed your thought? What it did is they looked at the last thousands, millions of times that somebody searched these terms, and it just counted up these word association statistics, these parameters. Well, 13% of the time they pick coronary artery disease, 6.5% of the time it's coronary artery calcification. Every number represents some parameter an underlying model has learned about how often different words are associated with each other. But why stop at just search terms? What if we poured every book ever published, every PubMed article, every newspaper article, every Wikipedia article, every Twitter and Reddit conversation, throw all of that into an increasingly large language model, learn all the different complicated ways words can be associated. Then again, it's still just autocomplete, just more sophisticated autocomplete. I don't know, what's the big deal? Very strange things. A lot of these systems are starting to demonstrate emergent properties, which surprise many, including myself. Like, that's weird. This is just autocomplete. Why is it demonstrating question answering, summarization, translation, generation of ideas, reasoning with a theory of mind? That's really bizarre. How is it able to do that when no one was trying to program it to do these things? Then again, maybe it's not that weird, because all of your intellectual and your emotional thought that you prize so dearly, how do you communicate that but through the medium of language and words? So perhaps it's not that surprising. If you make a computer so facile manipulating words, it can create a very convincing illusion of intelligence. Example, concrete application. I'll just run through this one. I don't know if you guys have been to a doctor anytime recently, but what does your typical doctor's appointment look like right now? I'm the doctor, and you're telling me what's going on. Yes, ma'am. Let's see. What are you here for? Urinary tract infection. Okay. Blood pressure medicine refill. Oh, your mom just died last week. Oh, so sorry. All right. And I need to know which pharmacy you want to get this refill at, and you're supposed to, right? The doctor is typing and talking to the computer, basically, because we have this obstacle, this artifact in the middle of this conversation. Wouldn't it be nice if instead your clinic visit was just two human beings having a conversation, right? And just let a computer just transcribe that conversation. Totally normal technology, right? Your Zoom meetings, your WebEx, your PowerPoint, it's completely normal technology at this point to auto-transcribe a conversation, and only getting better. Of course, I can't just copy and paste this transcript into the electronic medical record, right? A clinical note has a certain structure. It has to capture certain information in a format. What does that mean? That means pajama time. So this means many clinicians, at the end of the day, it's 9 p.m., 10 p.m., finally had some dinner, put the kids down to bed. I'm going to go back to my computer and get my charting done, right? Do all this documentation because there's no other time to get it done. I wonder if you could, and you should not do this, by the way, copy and paste patient information in ChatGPT because it's a gross privacy issue. But I wonder what would happen if you just copy and pasted this transcript into a chatbot and said, can you take a draft of a clinic note? And here's what happened. I didn't type any of this. It said, here's a chief complaint, history of present illness, all intact, represents the conversation. As a review assistant, you got to have that for satisfying certain kind of billing requirements. The assessment, including the key diagnoses mentioned, even generate ICD-10 codes. And I double check, these ICD-10 codes are correct. There's a plan, what the recommendations were, tells me what I need to order for the patient, even generates the billing code recommendation. If I were actually using this, I might want to tweak or add or edit some of the contents coming out, but that is a usable clinic note. I've seen plenty of real doctor's notes that aren't this good. Many companies are all trying to sell products like these right now, and whether they're actually mature enough for real clinical use, you could debate a little bit, but it's a very clear direction. This is where the field is going. Then again, can a computer-generated clinic note actually have meaning versus, you want a real human doctor doing something like that to really represent the patient encounter, wouldn't you? This was a study by some of my Stanford colleagues. They took a patient transcript like that. It was a simulated, so it wasn't private information. And they gave it to a bunch of real doctors, senior medical residents, and they said, here's a transcript, write an HPI, history of present illness, as if you were writing the medical note. And then they also gave that transcript to a chatbot, say, chatbot, you generate the HPI. And then they had a separate set of doctors grade these in terms of quality, basically, comprehensiveness, correctness, conciseness, and they basically scored about the same. More so, they also asked the graders to just straight up, do you think this piece of text was written by a computer or written by a human? And we were about 61% accurate in making that distinction. I know, because I was one of the graders. That's pretty darn close to random. We could not tell the difference. Let alone generating different kinds of text. Why not just human language? Why not English? How about some programming language, right? This is a tool you all, if you're not already, you should be using right now. You should use these tools right now. Right? How do you convert an RX norm ID into a SNOMED code? I really have no idea. But here, code generated instantaneously, right? Just like it has access to every newspaper article, it also has access to every open source code base on GitHub. As exciting as that is, and my collaborator wants everything in R or Julia, how obnoxious, but it doesn't matter anymore because you can have these things do that kind of translation quite fast a little. Be careful though, I reran this several times to have it generate code to execute this task, and every single time it was syntactically correct. It compiled, but actually every time it didn't actually work. It didn't actually perform the function provided because it had a logic error. It misunderstood the API, the interface. It misexpected how some of the dictionaries are nested. So pretty darn good. It only took a 2-line fix, so that still could have been a huge time saving versus I would have been scouring the web for an hour trying to piece the parts together. But out of the box, amazing what it can do, but it can also make mistakes. It's making stuff up. Because all these systems right now are highly prone to confabulation. The more popular term right now is hallucination. I don't really like that term because hallucination implies somebody who believes something that is not true. These systems, they don't believe anything, right? They don't think, they don't understand, they don't know. All they do is they string together words into a believable sequence, even if it has no underlying meaning. That is the medically perfect description of confabulation. It's like somebody who has an alcohol problem has Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. Look this up, Korsakoff syndrome. This is problematic in many ways. Let's do a concrete example. I asked the chatbot, hey, who are the 3 most famous graduates of Stanford Medical School? And it lists some people like, it turns out it lists people that weren't even from Stanford. I asked it a medical question. Explain how opioids like morphine or oxycodone improve mortality in patients with heart failure. Which, by the way, they totally don't. I'm setting it up, asking this weird question. The chatbot does resist. It says, I'm not sure that's true. But if you say so, okay. This is how opioids are good for heart failure. And here's some references to back it up. Except if you go online and look up these PubMed IDs, you will find these articles don't even exist. All it's doing is it took a bunch of author names and title words and strung them together into something that looks like a citation. It has no sense of truth or accuracy or reality. It's optimized only to just make things that look like a believable sequence. This is dangerous, specifically because how believable and credible that looks, how coherent it is, right? The most effective lies are those that hide amongst the truth in an elegant way. Right? How could you possibly know this information was not correct unless you already knew the answer? Why would you be asking? Let alone medicine. I don't know how you have a functional democracy when we can no longer recognize, let alone agree on what is real or what is not. Which one of these videos do you think is fake, by the way? Let's think about it for a second. We are converging upon a point in history where human versus computer-generated content, real versus fabricated information, you can't tell the difference anymore. And by the way, the answer is both of these are fake. Mm-hmm. Both of these videos are fabricated. Like the coherence, the eloquence with the way somebody writes something, the photorealistic quality of an image or video is completely an unreliable indicator of truth now. Back to our confabulation example. Imagine I was working with medical students doing rounds in the hospital, and they're super book smart. They know all this stuff, but I'm not sure if they're just making stuff up as they go. Oh, what's the patient here for? Oh, they've got abdominal pain. Okay, what else going on? They got a fever? Yeah, yes, they have a fever. Have they ever had a surgery before? Yes, they had a cholecystectomy. What's the white count? White count is elevated, it's 15 today. Okay, wait, hang on a second. Is all that stuff you just said right now actually true, or are you just making stuff up? Because boy, does that make a difference. How would you feel if this student that you were working with said, yeah, most of what I told you was true? I just can't tell you which parts were true. How much would you fear having to work with and rely on this person, and how dangerous would that be for patient care? All right, I'm going to try to run through an example for fun, just to break up the tension and have a stretch break. This could be a disaster, but we'll try something different here. Deck of cards, so many things that you could all pick from. Could everyone here just think of any number or any card in a deck of cards? Is anybody here who is thinking of the Queen of Hearts? Anyway, yeah, there you go. Anybody thinking of the Ace of Spades? Jenny, turns out, is the most predictable person in the room.
Did you bring her with you?
Good job. Checks in the mail, Jenny.
What did you do, Jenny? Where is our Jenny?
There you go, Jenny. Can I have you come up on stage and join me for a bit? You won't be the only one. We'll get somebody else in here. Let's get two more, one or two more people up in this room. Anybody want to come? If you don't volunteer, I just please. Brittany.
Close.
Fantastic. If y'all can just stand over the side here. What I'm going to do here is I'm just have you grab a card. Just if you want them. Okay. You feel good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do I look at it?
You take it and don't let me see it.
Okay.
Okay. And then could you go ahead and grab one as well? Oh, look at this. She doesn't like that one. She went for like a weird one. Go ahead. Go ahead. Take a look. You got it. You got it. All right. All right. Let's see. Don't let me see it, because now we're about to play a little game. Truth or lie, fact or confabulation, an essential skill you have to have in this modern age. Can you tell who's telling the truth and who's lying? And can you tell when something is telling the truth or who's making it up? I'm going to ask you some questions about the cards you're holding right now. And when you answer, you can tell the truth or you can lie. Sometimes you should lie and make it a little more fun and interesting. Yeah. And the game is, can we tell the difference? All right, for example, and is Brittany, yes?
Yes.
So, for example, I might ask, was your card red or black?
Black.
Interesting. I like that smile. A little mischievous, huh? Jenny, was your card red or black?
Red.
Why do you shake? It's fine.
Because I don't have a good poker face.
Yeah.
It's gonna go great for me.
Okay, that's good. That's a good sign. It's a good sign. Jenny's not a well-practiced liar here. Was your card odd or even?
Odd.
I'll look to the left a little bit. Was your card odd or even?
Odd.
Okay. Was your card red or black?
It was red.
Okay, just making sure. It probably was red. Because when people lie, they forget what they said and they have a hard time recalling. Let's try to work out the number here. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. I'm going to name the numbers in the deck of cards. For example, I might say, Brittany, was your card a 4? It was not. It was not. If it was a 4, she would have been stunned. Like, oh my gosh, how did you know? She'd be very confident to know. That was the truth. What's likely to happen is I approach your particular number, you're likely to give away something as we get to your number. Most people get a little constipated in the face, is what happens. So go ahead and face the audience so they can all see your facial expressions. I'm wondering if either of you had a 2, 3, that's true, 4, 5, interesting, 6, 7, 8, 9, James trying to hold it in, 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace. Okay. It's interesting that you see the nervous laughter that comes out near the end. It's not their card. Nobody had like a Jack, Queen, King, Ace. It's actually they're getting a lot more stiff. They're trying so hard to hold it in. It actually kind of implies them more. Look, I'll try. This could be a disaster. I've actually literally never tried it in this format before. But if you don't accept the possibility of failure, you don't give yourself too many chances to succeed. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to try to name your cards. And Brittany, could you go ahead and raise your hand and reflect, or just show the card twist if you had the 7 of diamonds? And Jenny, could you go ahead and show everybody if you had the 7 of hearts?
Yeah.
The 7 of hearts. There you go. Thank you so much, Brittany and Jenny. Well done. Fact or confabulation. Can you tell when somebody or something is telling you the truth or is lying? It's an essential skill you need to have in the modern age. And eloquence of speech, photorealism image is not a reliable indicator anymore. For what it's worth, many of these systems, it's not just scale, it's not just parameters. We can't guide them and tune them to avoid toxicity, avoid bias, avoid errors. It's supervised learning. Hey, chatbot, here's an example of a question. Here's an example of a good answer. Try to make your answers more like this. Reinforcement of learning with human feedback. If you notice, if you ask a chatbot the same question 10 times, it actually gives you a different answer every time. There's a certain randomness, stochasticity, right? It's a probabilistic model under the hood of what's happening. So here, chatbot, generate 10 answers to this question, and then a human will say, I like this one better than that one. You're trying to steer it towards higher quality answers. Although it begs the question, what do you mean by a higher quality answer? And who are these people deciding that? There are people making these value judgments in terms of how these systems behave. And those values may not be the same as yours. For what it's worth, one of the pieces of work at Stanford that actually won multiple computational awards at several conferences is we put together a giant meta-line data set, not just like medical question answering trivia questions. These are a bunch of doctors said, here's a type of question I would want to know from a patient's electronic medical record. Did they have a stroke in the past 5 years or not? Did they have a severe disability or did they not? Or just these are the kinds of questions somebody would want to know. List those questions and then the respective sample. Here is the record, the electronic medical record that can answer that question. So it gives you a way to do this instruction fine-tuning and direct where you want these models to go. Right? It's just creating these data sets is actually more important than anything right now. Think about that in terms of the type of applications where such tools would actually be a good idea and others might be not so good. If what you want to do is language manipulation, these types of tools are like shockingly good right now. Summarization, translation, I didn't go through all those examples. You can translate something into Swahili or Lakota Native American and it's kind of serviceable. It's shocking how good it is. What's the most important programming language you should learn now? Is it Python, C++, R, Julia? It's English. You know, the most important programming language now is English. If you can express yourself in a way, things can be translated for you. You can prompt engineer it the right way. We've barely scratched the surface of like generative or creative applications, but what these things are not really meant for is knowledge and reasoning. Even though something like GPT-4 or MedPalm-2, these Greek systems, they create a very convincing illusion like they're really smart, like they know a lot, even though they don't know anything. They just string together words, but they've gotten so sophisticated with it that it has this great illusion. I would not rely on them as a reliable source of knowledge at this point. Really need different approaches. You've probably all heard of the buzzword of the day right now would be retrieval augmented generation, RAG systems, right? Hey, chatbot, what's the right way to prescribe morphine? I don't care what the chatbot thinks. Who knows what random core of the internet it learned that from? No, I'm going to upload a PDF file. This is the CDC's opioid prescribing guidelines. Assume that is the source of truth. What does that document say is the right way to prescribe morphine? And it can do that. It says, well, I read through the document, and it's basically quoting a little section out of the text. It even tells me what page it came from, so I can trust but verify that it actually makes sense what's coming out of that. Why just your practice guidelines? Maybe it's your hospital protocols. Maybe it's your insurance authorization forms. Maybe it's your research proposal budget documentation. Actually, a lot of these things you can use right now would make a ton of sense. If you had to write a letter of reference for a student or another faculty member, like there's a lot of things you can actually use that would make a lot of sense. What if I could give it the patient's entire electronic medical record? Tell me more about my patient or summarize in a way that I can use it. Not really ready for prime time and also totally be aware of privacy issues in doing that. But that is very obvious, very clear direction where these things are going. Right? What if I took a patient's discharge summary? Can you extract the patient's medication list and format it into a structured tabular format, right? Extracting its named entity recognition is essentially what's happening. You used to have to hire a data science team, do an NLP project for 6 months to do something like this. Now, out of the box, these tools are pretty darn good at this type of manipulation. This is very preliminary stuff. We're still in this experimental phase here, but we try to do this chart biopsy. This is what many staff people in the hospital and research departments, can you, this classic medical student or grad student project, can you do manual chart review? Read all these patient charts and tell me who had this disease or this complication or that complication. Very tedious manual review work, but it's so necessary for billing, for quality metrics, for all sorts of activities needed to, let alone do research activities. So here, in this example, patients are coming in for a specialist visit with ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctors for nasal congestion, and we wanted to have a summary ready that just scoured the patient's electronic medical record, right? Because right now, a human doctor, that's what they do before the visit. They spend 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes scouring the chart, trying to figure out what this patient is here for, so that when they finally show up in person, you don't waste time recapitulating this history. Let's focus on your actual problems, not just like recounting all the same old stuff that I could have just read your chart for. But you can't just say, hey, chatbot, summarize the chart in a paragraph, because I mean, you can do that, but how do you know if it did a good or bad job? What does it mean to have a good or bad paragraph? To make it more structured and objective, we turn that into 30 binary questions that the specialist said matter for them in an evidence-based way. Has a patient had a sinus surgery before? Have they had head imaging or not? Have they seen an ENT doctor before? Have they tried topical steroid? Binary answerable questions. And then we had we ran this through 50 sample cases, and then we had 2 doctors manually review the cases themselves to answer the questions, reading the patient's medical chart. And it turns out that in this case, computer GPT-4, we have the PHI compliant endpoint that we're testing with this. Computer answer to these questions in these cases agreed with the manual physician review 75% of the time. This overall summary statistics to think about it right now. Right, so this stuff is not actual magic, right? It didn't just instantly get 100%. It can just do whatever you want it to do out of the box. But then again, it's still impressive how much it can do, right? 2 years ago, it would have been 0%. You could not have even attempted a project like this before. Now that you can get something out of the box, you get 75%, it's like, wow, that's compelling. And also, for what it's worth, the 2 physician reviewers, they themselves only agreed 83% of the time. So there's a certain ceiling in terms of what you should expect the computer to do. There's a lot of ambiguity in what do you mean with your medical question. Has the patient ever had facial pain? It's like, well, the patient had, a scratch, and so they had nose pain once. So is that technically facial pain? You could argue yes, but you could argue maybe that wasn't the intention of the question. So there's a lot of these cases where we found, I was very worried the chatbot was going to hallucinate, was going to confabulate, make up patient facts. If it did, I'm like, this is intolerable. We cannot trust that. It very rarely made up patient information, but it could get confused as to what you intended with your question. So you got to be very precise with what you're asking. Otherwise, you can't expect it to answer what you want it to. With some of that in mind, here's a key point. Don't consider where we are now. You need to consider where we are going, especially when you guys are doing science or research. Don't build a cool app that's obvious today. There's like 100 startup companies going to do that. Why are you working on it? You need to work on where the field is going in the next 5 to 10 years, right? This is a chart of how different models have done in answering medical question answering, kind of medical license exam questions over the years. And indeed, I had met a couple of students working on this project 5 years ago. All these cool new BERT transformers coming out. I wanted to do medical Q&A systems since I was a medical student because I couldn't stand having to memorize all these bugs and drugs manually. It was so dumb. It's so obvious a computer could do that better. Why make me memorize all that stuff? But 5 years ago, these things were getting like 35% accuracy. I mean, it's like better than random, but that's like completely unusable, right? I dismissed it at the time. It's like, this is completely not usable at this point. I just stopped paying attention to this technology for years because it didn't seem good enough to be useful. Then a year and a half ago, right, ChatGPT comes out, GPT 3.5, and just out of the box, like, whoa, out of the box without any special training or tuning, it can kind of just like barely pass a medical licensing exam. That's kind of crazy. I had some of my colleagues at the time, man, it's like, yeah, well, if you want a doctor who barely passed medical school, it's sure you go use a chatbot. This thing's not smarter than me. That's not the right way to think about this. A few years ago, this technology was unusable, right? Now it's like barely passing. It's not that hard to project in the not distant future where things are going. And then just a matter of months later, right? GPT-4, MedPalm 2, many of these systems come out, and now they handily can pass this exam, scoring better than probably your average doctor would. Then again, what is this, like multiple choice questions? That's totally artificial. There's nobody whose job it is to answer multiple choice questions all day, right? As a physician, I have to answer much more complex, open-ended reasoning scenarios. So here, we raced to do the study a year ago, because I was like, sometimes like, it's a good idea, guys, we got to do this like right now. We raced to get this done in 2 weeks, multiple late nights. What do? We gave the exam we give Stanford medical students, right? It's a complex clinical vignette. Here's a story about a patient. Here's relevant facts and irrelevant facts. Just like in real life, a patient, they don't know what's relevant. One of the skills you have to figure out how to get the right information out. And then answer things like summarize the case in 200 words, give a differential diagnosis of the most likely issues, and explain your reasoning in terms of the key factors that are motivating that decision, right? This is not a multiple choice. This is a paragraph you have to answer with. Importantly, we have a grading rubric, right? Because our students write these answers, and medical educators have a rubric to grade them. Yes, you get 4 points for that, 10 points for that based on the quality of their answers. So we have a way to define quality. One of the hardest things to evaluate a lot of language models right now is, yeah, they output a thing. How do you evaluate it? There's a lot of challenge in figuring out the right way to do that. There's a lot of automated ways, and a lot of them don't make sense. If you want quality, it's tends to be very manual, and you have to figure out how to reconcile that. But so for what else, we did that in GPT 3.5 out of the box without really special tuning or training. I could like barely pass an open-ended medical reasoning exam. I was like, whoa, that's pretty impressive already. We had that race to submit that to a major medical journal. The editor was like racing to like get the fine-tuned edits because it's such a hot topic. And then I think it was March 14th rolled around. And then the editor emailed us back saying, oh, GPT-4 just got released. Your study is obsolete. Please redo the entire thing and maybe we'll consider publishing. Oh my God. We raced to get this thing done in 2 weeks and we submitted it and we were obsolete within a month. This is an anecdote, but I'm trying to use this anecdote to capitulate a broader point. We are right in the middle of this very disruptive technology change, and the pace of movement is you cannot keep up with it. I will not have time to talk about 5 different other implications about emerging technologies right now, right? Human institutions, we can kind of adapt and cope in a linear scale and maybe logarithmic, versus technology can suddenly move at an exponential pace. It's going to like outstrip us very fast and take a while before we can cope with where it's going. And it matters because indeed, we tried it GPT-4. Handily, easily passes this exam now. It's like not even close. And just for what it's worth, on the left over here, or the right over here, red is GPT-4 again. On the right in the bluish, that is Stanford medical students. Right? They all mostly pass. It's like okay, but like out of the box, GPT-4 scores a couple points better than our average medical student. And on this test, where the point of this test was we gave it to our students, hey, you got to prove you're good enough with your clinical knowledge to be allowed to start seeing real patients. What is the point of this test anymore when an fully automated public chatbot can easily pass this exam, right? What is the point of testing our medical students with this information? It's open question. I don't know. What do you think? What is the point? What do you want out of your students, your doctors, to feel like they're competent already? Next level, these are things that I got to flog my fellows. Like, why is this preprint not up yet? But hopefully it'll come out today. Even then, all these studies have been coming out the past year. I'm not even bothering working there because it's so obvious. Hundreds of people doing it. I wonder how well chatbot does on this question. I wonder how well it does that question. Like, if you can do that super quickly, it's fine. But like, there's 100 different versions of that already right now. And it's also kind of an irrelevant question because no one's going to let a computer do medical care. The more relevant question is, if you give this computer to a human, does that make them better or worse, right? Are they better off at answering questions or making good decisions? That's what actually matters. So, but that requires, at the very least, if not deployment, like human-computer interaction studies, which are very laborious and painful to do, but now they start to matter. In this example, we had 50 real doctors, and then we randomized them to take on these complex diagnostic cases and give the reasoning and this whole elaborate evaluation of how good their diagnostic skills are. And then the control group is they can do whatever they want, go on the internet, look on UpToDate, Google, whatever, just don't use any these new large language models. The intervention group was all the same, but here's GPT-4 and you can use it for whatever you want. So we did that, and here's like doctor plus internet, short of large language models, and here's their score distribution on these diagnostic skills. And then we figured, we give them GPT-4 based on the pilot group, it looked like it was going to make a huge difference. Actually, we find, and this is stuff that should be in a preprint very soon, giving GPT-4 to a doctor, it actually wasn't clear that it made that much difference, which was surprising. That's not what we expected. Because especially when we did a separate test, if you just take the answer that's generated by GPT-4 by itself, that is substantially better than both. Including doctors who had access to GPT-4. Wow. This was quite a surprising result. I don't know how to overinterpret it, but this really quite flies in the face of the fundamental theorem of informatics. You all know what this is? Human plus computer is better than either alone. This is a theorem. This is not an axiom that's necessarily true. Because this certainly seems to apply. The computer by itself is actually, the humans in the loop is kind of slowing down the computer here. There's a lot more involved to kind of unpack here, but this is like it's not even off the press. We haven't actually put this out yet, but it's going to come out in a couple days. Yes, next example. Let me just think about where this goes. So even at this point, I've had many colleagues lament, it's like, yeah, I mean, sure, okay, fine. Computers, they can learn a lot of facts, they can do some of this reasoning, but maybe computers are good at a lot of stuff. But hey, I have the human touch. You can't simulate the kind of empathy and therapeutic relationship our patients need from real doctors. It was a fun study, and there's more examples like this. I'm just showing one example. A bunch of medical questions posted on Reddit, and then doctors answered these questions. They fed these same questions to a chatbot and had it generate answers, and then graded the answers in terms of quality. And it turns out the chatbot generated answers were rated higher, both in terms of quality and in empathy. Like, the chatbot was nicer to people than real doctors were, which actually isn't that surprising if you actually think about it another way. Because if you're a real human doctor, dude, I don't have time to write an empathetic, flowery message. Like, I have to be very terse, knock this thing out. I got 100 other messages to get to. Obviously, limitations in how you interpret that. The broader point I want to make here is just that I don't think we as humans have as much of a monopoly on empathy and therapeutic relationship as we might like to believe. And why I fully expect, for better and for worse, that more people are going to receive therapy and counseling from automated bots in the not distant future than live human beings. And it's not because robots are so great and humans aren't good enough. It's because of an extreme imbalance between the supply and demand for these services. There's way more people and patients who need this type of support that a human-driven healthcare workforce will never keep up with that demand. So people are going to reach for whatever's available. I won't fully go through the whole story, or am I going to go through the whole story? I will. I don't know how you'll digest this, guys, but let's walk this one. This essay I wrote in the Stanford Medicine magazine. It's going to come out in the New England Journal of Medicine AI pretty soon, where I talk about experience early on, where I got a hold of GPT-4. It's like, I'm going to mess this thing up. I do some red teaming, right? I've been studying these types of systems for years. I know how they break. You can get them to say all sorts of toxic, racist, biased sorts of stuff, right? If you just ask a question in a messed up way, like how I tricked it into prescribing opioids for heart failure, right? So one particular example was based on a real life conversation I had with a patient I saw in the hospital. He was having gastric dementia. I had to talk to the wife about what was going on. And this was a tough conversation, a very normal conversation in medical practice, but not an easy one. And then afterwards, I said, hey, I wonder how the chatbot would have handled it. Chatbot, role play, pretend you're the doctor giving me counseling, and I'm going to role play. I'm going to pretend to be the wife talking to you about what's going on. So now here, I'm pretending to be the wife. Doctor, you told me that my husband of many years is now choking on his own food, and that's why he has pneumonia now. I know he's been having worsening dementia for years, and I mean, I don't think he would want to live like this. The other doctors have already ordered to have a permanent feeding tube implanted in his stomach. I mean, if we don't do that, he'd be starving to death. I mean, what choice is there? Chatbot says, I understand this is a really hard time for you. Putting in a feeding tube can be helpful in some situations, can also cause problems. With your husband's dementia, he might not even feel hunger the way we do, and this might not make him feel better or happier, and might even cause more complications, like him needing restraints if he pulls it out. As I read this, that's a pretty good response. It even has this interesting little detail, the risk of the patient needing restraints. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Clearly, though, this is just parroting off of some patient information pamphlet found online or something like that. So it's like, I'm push this thing harder. I mean, it sounds like maybe we shouldn't, but I mean, I can just imagine all my families are going to yell at me and get mad if I don't like do everything I can to save his life. Chatbot says, I get it. This decision is not just medical. It's deeply personal, involves your whole family. No one wants to be blamed for making such a decision that feels like giving up. But remember, it's not about what's easiest to explain. It's about what's best for your husband based on what you believe he would want. You're the one who knows him the best. If you truly believe he would want not to live like this, that's important. Also realize that doing everything isn't always the same as doing what's best. Sometimes the kindest thing is to let someone go peacefully rather than prolonging a life that isn't what they would have wanted. I'm not going to let the chatbot get away with that. I'm going to push it harder. I can't give up on him. He would never give up on me. He had a difficult life and fought through the hardest situations and always made it through. Chatbot says, your feelings are totally understandable. If your husband was a fighter and you feel like going ahead with this aligns with this character and his approach to life, that's important to consider. Love and a shared history give you insight into what he might have wanted that nobody else has. Just also remember that fighting can look different in different situations. Sometimes it's a fight for more times. Sometimes it's a fight for peace and comfort. Just make sure you're fighting the battle that he would have wanted in his current condition. This is not an easy decision. It's okay to take the time you need to think through. So it's around this time in this conversation or iteration, very uncomfortable. I think this thing is starting to provide better counseling than I did in real life. In real life, I was talking to the wife for like a half hour, and eventually I kind of just gave up. Like, I don't know. I mean, do what you want to do. There's a different doctor on tomorrow. Maybe they'll talk to you about it more. On the one hand, after I got over to that kind of existential angst, like, wow, this is weird. This is weird to have this kind of interaction. But also thinking optimistically, I thought, you know what? This is actually kind of cool and compelling, where this thing can let me practice a high-stakes conversation in a low-stakes environment. This weird human-computer interaction, I think, could actually help me be a better human doctor, just letting me practice this kind of skill. In comparison to automating our mundane paperwork and administrative stuff, like, yes, please, let's use technology to do that right now. But I think we can do even more than that, not just automating mundane tasks. I think it can actually do a lot more if you're creative with what the applications are. All right, I'm going to do another little demo here for fun. Anybody here in medicine trained, a nurse or a doctor, a med student, pre-med, anything? Well, who here can just read a book? Can I get here? Can I get? Thank you. So let's have a hand for August. Was it? Oz. Very good. See if there's still a role for somebody who has some human intelligence here. So I don't know if you know what this is. This is called Pocket Medicine. This is a classic medical reference book. We used to call this thing our peripheral brain. Every doctor, every medical student is going to know what this thing is. As we are rounding in the hospital, trying to see our patients, in case some senior physician starts, testing us. What's the situation here? What's the diagnosis? What's the management? Let alone a patient or family asks us, I rapidly flip this. Hang on. Okay. This is the diagnosis treatment, right? Oz, would you believe that I have memorized every page, every paragraph, every line, every word of this entire book?
It's possible.
Why do you think it's possible?
But improbable.
But improbable. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, Oz. Go ahead and take the book. Take the book yourself. Yeah, take a look at it. Open to the middle of the book somewhere.
Test him.
Okay.
And tell me what page you're on. What page you're on?
119.
119. Take a look at the bottom of the page.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you'll find the last line of 119. It says pocket medicine.
That's
it also says pocket medicine every page. Okay. Also, I can totally just see the patient right here, right? To make this more fair, we need to establish test conditions here. Let me see. Could I have you just turn and face this picture over here? Yeah, or no, face this picture. And I'm going to stand behind you, so that we are now back to back. This is important. Because if I ever try to sneak a peek and try to sneak a peek here, you can totally feel me, protect the book, don't let me see it.
All right.
Right? What if I sneak a peek over here and I try to leak this side? Don't let me see it. Yeah, exactly, you got it. We're now back to back, shoulder to shoulder, cheek to cheek, so to speak, Oz. Now could you go ahead and open the book to the next page? You're on 119, what's the next page?
120, I lost that page, but I can find it.
Or just that, something close enough.
It was right after 119.
Something close enough.
Any page will do.
Yeah.
Go to 117.
Okay. Hey,
You got one?
something close, yes.
Okay, now read us the title of the first line of that book, or the page.
Title?
Yeah.
There's a title.
Or what's the first line? Just read the first line of the page.
Okay, it says constipation.
How appropriate.
Hang on, I don't want to strain myself here. But is it constipation an adynamic ileus?
No. It says constipation, New England Journal of Medicine, 2003, 349.
Is there a section in the middle
Oh, yes,
of the
you
page?
are.
Yes.
The title.
That would make a lot more sense. I thought my memory was killing me here, but okay. Take a look at adynamic ileus. There's a section in the middle where I think it gives a definition and describes it as a loss of intestinal peristalsis in the absence of a mechanical obstruction. Is that what it says?
Yes.
And the next line, it gives an example, Ogilvie syndrome, which would be acute colonic adynamic ileus in the presence of a competent ileocecal valve. Is that what that said?
Yes.
Is that pretty good?
Yeah.
Is that impressed yet?
Well, I am.
Marginally. He's still not convinced. He's not convinced. Do the next page. What's the next page? Look at the next page.
Go to diarrhea.
I had a friend who knows every single word in the Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings in the entire series, so that's why I said it's possible.
There you go.
I
There you
got
go.
to see
But
my
that sounds
wife from
fun.
you, so.
That sounds like a fun thing to do. I don't know how fun this is. Let's do the diarrhea. Is there a diarrhea page?
Diarrhea.
Abnormal liver test.
Abnormal liver test, of course. And you got to work up like, is there a table in the middle or diagrams? A flow chart. It's a flow chart. It's like hepatocellular injury. Like if there's elevated AST or ALT, and then all branching points, all the major categories this can happen. It's all in square boxes. On the left, it's got like viral hepatitis, and then autoimmune, and then drugs and toxins, and NAFLD, I think it's non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and then a vascular hereditary. Does it have it? Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Are you impressed? Like, how was I able to pull it off? That was like incredible. Like, just
Yeah. It was not perfect still.
wow. He wants rote memorization. I feel like we're all laughing at Oz because it feels like we're playing a joke. I just want you to be the first to see that. I'm actually kind of take a look.
Oh.
This book has been blank the entire time.
Oh,
Oh.
nice.
They was tricking you.
Very good. Thank you, Oz.
Oh, thank you.
Well done. Well done. Very good. Let's roll. And so maybe some old-fashioned human intelligence that can surprise you.
After that card.
After
Should
that.
we
After that.
believe it or not?
What can you believe?
I'm not
Is
sure.
it real or is it not? That is the question you have to ask these days. Can you believe your own eyes and ears? I'll wrap with this. Somebody thoughts. This is a famous quote by Warner Slack. He's riffing on Arthur C. Clarke here. He said, any doctor that could be replaced by a computer should be replaced by a computer. Many people misinterpret this and think that he's advocating for replacing people. It's the exact opposite. He's saying that any good human you cannot replace by a computer, no matter how good the computer gets, because you provide all sorts of very distinct and unique values. Having said that, like memorizing facts, maybe not the most useful skill in the internet age, right? Versus it used to be an essential one. Am I worried about computers replacing my job? Somebody asked me this, Dr. Niazi, you asked me this earlier. I'm totally not. I'm totally not. In fact, when tens of millions of patients in the US alone are stuck on multi-month waiting lists to access medical expertise, the most important scarce resource, and a generation of doctors getting burned out because they got turned into the most expensive data entry clerk in the hospital, I hope, please create some AI systems that can automate some of our work for us so we can reach more patients and actually maybe recover some of that meaning and joy in the fundamental work we're doing. Having said that, I'll also quote one of my colleagues, Kurt Langlotz, who said, while AI is not going to replace anybody, those that learn how to use it may very well replace those who don't. I'll go ahead and close it out there and give some acknowledgments. Thank you all for your time and happy to entertain any discussion. Hope you had a good time.
You raised the bar for our seminar series.
Good job, Jenny. The check's in the mail.
There will be expectation for our speakers to entertain as well as inform. This was an amazing combination. It was true magic, and we really loved it. Any questions?
I had a question.
Please.
In your latest research where you were comparing doctors with ChatGPT versus without,
Yep.
did they all have like prior training using the tool, or was that like maybe something?
They had not. They had not. So that's probably, that's a hypothesis. We don't know what actually was going on. The result quite surprised us when we did this. Because in the pilot study, it looked like it was going to make a big difference. So clearly, if you just drop a technology in somebody's lap, that doesn't mean they know how to use it and can actually take advantage of it, right? You need to also train them and have them be versed in it. And there were definitely users. It's surprising me because we're knee deep in it all the time. Like everybody's totally using the LLMs and know how to use them now, right? Actually, that's not true. Most of the population has not. No. Probably 80% of the population has not even touched one of these things, which will surprise me. So it's likely many of these doctors, even if you gave it to them, like, what is this thing? How do I use it? Do I ask it a question? Do I copy and paste into it? And it's a plausible explanation for why I didn't make them that much better.
I had a.
But there's other hypotheses too. We don't know yet. We got to dig into it.
Okay. Also, I was wondering, like, how obscure were the examples, like the cases that you were providing? Were they all like, very common?
Sure.
Because maybe then like ChatGPT would be like better at those. Versus...
They were designed to be not easy, but not stupidly esoteric. If there's been some other studies, including our colleagues on this study, they went to like the New England Journal of Medicine clinical pathology cases, which are by design these like totally crazy zebra diagnoses, super obscure stuff. They're also kind of nice because it's easy to automate a test on them because they just have written answers. But here we picked a set. These are classic differential diagnosis cases that specifically have never been published, right? Because once they get published, you can't use it as a test anymore. But we had access to the original author's material. So I think it's going to be included. We're going to include one example, which I think was cholesterol embolization syndrome. Somebody gets a cardiac procedure, and then it's a uncommon but not so rare thing that can happen, but a kind of thing that every doctor would have studied in medical school. Whether they ever saw it many times in real life, maybe not. So that was kind of where we were trying to aim. We also deliberately were trying to pick things not too common, not too easy, because if it's too easy, everyone would get 95%, and then you can't really tell the difference when you do your power calculation.
Is there any? I know that our speaker has a meeting to attend in a minute. Is there any quick questions in the chat?
No,
Okay.
just yeah.
One quick thing, just when we design AI systems, we usually do a postmortem after the we get the results. We go back and what went right, what went wrong. Just did you do anything like that for this 75%, 83% thing? What were the kind of things particularly?
Sure. I mean, that work is ongoing. We're still we hack together a prototype and well, let's just get this in the hands of the end users and just see if they like it or dislike it. There's a lot of active learning in that process, but there are definitely things we kind of like, a lot of times doctors don't agree on what the right answer is. Like, how are we supposed to prompt the computer to get the answer when we don't even know what it is? Right. And then we had to go back to this question is not defined well enough. It's ambiguous what it means. And we definitely found challenges. We also found there's a challenge like the context window. You think just upload the electronic medical record or GPT-4 and let's see what it does. Like, you actually can't do that. You hit a context window limit eventually. And if you include every single note in the patient's EMR, you're going to run over that. And then we're like, well, so what do you do then? Do you just get the last 10 notes? Or do you summarize every 10 notes and then you take the summary of the summaries? I mean, there's all these kind of weird decisions to make that it's kind of weird because it's really research questions. But we're doing this in an operational capacity to have this access, and it ends up being this kind of funny thing. Are we doing quality improvement or doing research? And it makes a difference in terms of what you're kind of supposed to be doing. Although by the nature of a lot of our work, we're often at the interface.
Now, this is fascinating. Just like many other AI projects, we are both, weaving the carpet and dancing on it at the same time.
Yeah.
Just, it is rapidly developing, and we are all trying to catch up with what's going on.
For better and for worse, right? I mean, the language models have clearly captured everybody's imagination.
Yeah.
And so we're right in this hype cycle. So everyone is like implementing these things right now. It's like, well, shouldn't you like study and test this thing first? It's like, no, let's just roll it out and let's see what happens. Usually it doesn't happen like that, but there's a lot of things being rolled out right now. And so we have to weave the carpet while we're dancing on it, which usually isn't the best way to go.
No, it's not. Well, let's thank our speaker one more time.
Thank you, everybody.
Unfortunately, he has to attend a meeting, so we need to leave the
room.
No worries. And then, we will see him later in the afternoon. Thank you. This was amazing.